a very special song, so we're going to do that for you tonight.
Today we're speaking with Talita Long, a very important person in the circle of life, I would say. We want people to know who you are. Where were you born and what was your life about?
Well, I was born in Brooklyn, New York, and both my parents, my mother was actually born in Grenada, and she came over at 21, and my dad was born in Trinidad, and he came over around the same age, in their 20s, early 20s, to America. And they met at a dance, and then they dated for a while, I guess, and then they got married. And my sister, who's 4.5 years older than me, and then I came, I was born in Brooklyn at 1139 Park Place. And so that's where that's all I knew growing up.
Tell us about your childhood. What was your childhood like growing up in Brooklyn, New York?
Well, the neighborhood was kind of a mixed neighborhood. Like, the people next door to me were Irish. Miss Gregory, she would crochet doll baby knitted things for my dolls and everything. And then on the corner there was a Chinese girl, Lillian, and Lillian's father and mother owned a cleaners where they do sheets and stuff like that. My father would always take his sheets there, and they would be pressed and folded. Sheets were never wrinkled. And then around the corner there was my girlfriend, Elaine, who was Jamaican. And then I had two other girlfriends, Ann and Gemma, who was from Trinidad. And so I grew up with all these international people, and that was the fun thing. And I went to Catholic school, St. Gregory's.
Wonderful. In New York, it's like the Mecca of the Caribbean community.
Yes.
How did that community really help you to carve out what you have become as an artist?
Well, I think on Kingston Avenue, I live between Albany and Kingston, and on Kingston there were a lot of vegetable stands and women walking with that rhythm, that African rhythm, going to the store, buying vegetables and fresh fruit and stuff like that. I think that's the smells, of all the different Caribbean people. I think that definitely had an influence. Also, I would say the church, the St. Gregory's, because I went there from kindergarten till about the 8th grade. And just the Catholic Church, looking at all the paintings and the art on the buildings and the wrought iron. And in fact, if you look in this room, you'll see some of the stuff that I was able to get from priests and churches that have shut down. And so I love the candles and the elaborate wrought iron and the things like that. Those are the things that I still love to today. Even though I don't go to the Catholic Church and praise there, I still remember the incense and the nuns and the rosaries and all the things that they would bring you in, to bring you in the fold with those things,
As a performer and as a singer, great jazz singer, R&B singer, how did your spirituality help you to develop your talent as a singer? How did your spirituality, what role did your spirituality play? Gospel has played a tremendous role in the lives of many R&B singers. How did that affect you?
Well, I started singing when I was about 9 or 10. And there was this man, his name was Al Brown, and he had like a little studio where he would just have children come there and they could learn to tap and sing and ballet. And, you know, it was just local. It was on Eastern Parkway. And I would walk there, and I was like his lead singer. So he always, and we actually recorded a 45 at that age, you know. And I was, of course, the lead singer. So that's what really got me started. Spiritually, my grandmother told my mother that she felt that I was going to be a singer because I was always humming and singing in the crib. And she told my mother, she said, she's going to end up singing because she's always singing that, always a little melody that I would be singing. And it's so funny, my grandson does the same thing. Which is amazing.
You later on was the person who inspired a young, brilliant actress, Nia Long. How did that develop? How did your artistic life merged into hers in sort of developing this great talent that we see today in her?
Well, I think I went to the University of Iowa and I got 2 masters in fine arts. And as a single mother, I was married to Nia's father, but as we separated, I decided I needed to get as much education as possible. So I decided I graduated from Cooper Union in New York, which was a prestigious art school. And then I got a BFA, and then I went to University of Iowa and I got an MA and an MFA. And while I was there, Nia saw me doing a lot of things. She saw me drawing all the time. She saw me painting. She would come to the school. She was a little kid. She was like 3 or 4. So she always saw me doing stuff around drawing and stuff. But it didn't manifest into the arts, like fine arts, like what I was doing. She felt she had her own thing that she wanted to do. I had introduced her to tap dancing, gymnastics, all kind of stuff. But she said, "Mommy, I want to take an acting class." And I said, okay, no problem with that. And she started at one of the schools. By the time we got to Los Angeles, she started at one of the schools. And then when she was in elementary school, she met Regina King. And Regina King and her were like really great little friends. They were 2 little kids, right? And so Regina says, "Why don't you come to my acting class and meet Betty Bridges?" And so Betty Bridges is Todd Bridges' mother, who's a coach. She coached a lot of people. Nia, Sanaa Latham, Regina. I mean, there's so many. I can't even name all the people that she's worked with. And so as soon as she met Nia, she decided she gave her some paper to read and everything. She decided that she wanted to manage her. So she managed her for free. And at that time, the budget wasn't that big. And so I was so grateful for her that she was able to invest in her dream. And Nia would get jobs from time to time, little jobs. She maybe not spoken jobs. And then we would pay Betty, when she worked. And that's how it worked. And I don't know anybody who does it like this. She still does it to today. She invests in a lot of African American kids who wouldn't get opportunities like some of the white kids. And she has white students as well. And she finds agents for them, and she does all that kind of stuff. And that's how Nia got started, And she was with her. She managed her. And then when Nia turned like 19, she got the movie Boys in the Hood. She's done a lot of things before that, but it was when she did Boys in the Hood, that's when her career went like that. It just went shot right out. But it took 10 years. It didn't happen overnight.
Yes.
It didn't happen overnight. Did I answer your question?
Very much so.
Oh, okay.
The simple process, people look at this and they see the finished product of an artist like that, like yourself, and they don't really know that sometimes it's a very simple process that goes into it. It's not a complicated thing.
Yeah.
Tell us something about your artistic life. You're a phenomenal painter, artist, and also you teach art, and you're an educator also.
Yes.
Tell us about that part of your life.
Well, when I finished my master's and everything, I says, okay, I'm going to come to California. Iowa was just too cold. And I figured when I got here, I was going to maybe teach. So that was the first thing I did. But I had to go back after getting all those degrees, I couldn't get a job. I came about the day Proposition 13 came out, and they took all the arts out the school. This is under Reagan. And so it made it very difficult for me to get a job. And so what I had to do was go back to school and get a degree, a teaching credential. And that took a few more years, And meantime, when I got here, we had to go on welfare because I just didn't have any money, and I had to feed my daughter and myself. So they said, okay, you have a choice. You could do construction. First of all, they said, you're so well educated, it's kind of embarrassing to offer you this. But I says, I don't care. I have to feed my child and myself.
Overqualified.
Yeah, I was overqualified. So they said you could do construction or you could do drive a bus. So I said, okay, I'll drive a bus. So I ended up driving an RTD bus up and down Hollywood Boulevard. And it was a mess. I mean, it was unbelievably difficult dealing with the public because people would come on the bus and steal bags and go into people's purses and all kind of things. So it was fun though. It was fun. But then a job I also applied to other jobs. So I got a job working at CBS Records.
You were telling me about the whole challenges of how you were able to juggle careers and try to survive and make a living, and the incident with the bus and driving a bus and all of that. But what is very interesting about you is the way you were able to juggle these careers. Here you had this highly overqualified professional, but you were able to deal with the challenges that confronted you in such a positive way. And with that, people would never believe that you mothered this great actress, Nia Long. But we want to keep the focus on you here. How were you able to juggle the life of a singer with the life of an artist, a painter? How were you able to put those two things together?
I don't know. It's very difficult because some days you say, okay, do I sing today or do I paint today? And sometimes there's so much frustration because each discipline takes that much energy to do. And so we've become friends. I've learned to integrate the music and the art together in my later years, but in the earlier years, sometimes I wouldn't do anything because I said, I don't know what to do, or I'd get confused, or sometimes long periods of times would go by, or I would focus totally on music. Like when I first got to Los Angeles, my goal was, I want to do recordings, I want to sing performance. And the music industry back then, this was like in the early 80s, was the rap was coming in, Donna Summers, all these different things. And I used to work for Donna Summers. And all these different music and studios, I just could never get in. Never. It was just like constant frustration. But I kept at it, and I kept writing songs, and I kept trying to make demos and things like that. I have a ton of songs, and then I would still continue with my art. I would paint, and I did a whole series on the Caribbean. And then I would somehow, life is layers. You just do them, you keep doing them and you keep doing them. You keep practicing. You just keep doing it until you can't do it anymore. And I don't even know how to stop doing both of these things I do.
It has become a way of life for you.
Yeah, it's what I live for. My last breath will be humming something or drawing some kind of line or something. But, that's what I live for. And I also, my family is very important. I think during those days there were plenty of frustration or, plenty tears and well, how am I going to do this if I have to pick up my daughter? I was like a cab driver. I was taking her way out of our neighborhood for a better school. So it was like, how do I make all this work? I was still a young woman. I wasn't even dating that much. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, how do I get all this together? And somehow it just magically, through time, patience, and understanding, and trying to live a good life and be right with people, God saw fit to make things a little bit easier for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
You worked with some great producers from the 70s. One that comes to mind is Kevin Toney of the Blackbirds.
Yeah.
You have produced some very good material as an artist, as a singer. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that part of your life in working with these great producers from the 70s that produce great R&B music. How were you able to fit into that circle, and what made them find you appealing as an artist?
Well, when I first got here, I worked with a guy named Yusef Rahman, and he's passed away. And we would do like world music, like stuff that people weren't even doing. And, and then once he passed away, he had everything. I could never get a hold of all the original stuff. I do have some of the recordings that we did, but people would come and go, and of course it was their time to go, and it made it very difficult. So then I had to start over again. I had to meet other people, and of course, God allows the layers of life to come in, and you meet other producers and stuff like that, and you work with different people. Let's see. Then I worked with Kevin. I did my first CD with Kevin. I wrote all the music and the melody. I always wrote all the words and the melodies. They were always mine. And then the producers would come in with their the music that supported that, And so I always tried to have complete music, bridge, verses, all those things, because that's just how disciplined I was with my music. And I was grateful to work with all these different people. Yeah.
When I first saw you and heard you, I immediately what came to mind was Denise Williams. Your style, that cutting falsetto that you produce and that you sing so beautifully. They used to call Denise Williams a songbird.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, that's like Denise Williams right there.
Yeah.
And it was such a honor for me to have met somebody that had sung like that, because I had loved the way that singer had sung. How did you really develop that style? Was it a natural thing for you, or did you had to work on singing with such high pitch? Because it's similar to an opera singer.
Yeah.
And did you do any opera? That's my follow-up question after.
Okay. Yeah. I think when I was little, my mother used to go to Trinidad to visit her family, and she would bring back these Indian records. And the Indian vocalists, they sing very high for some reason, they do. And I used to listen, that's where it came from. I used to listen to them, the records she would bring back. And I think that's where I got the idea that I could sing that high. But that was the first influence. And then my sister would bring in a lot of jazz singers, Nancy Wilson and, what's her name? can't think of her name. Just different vocalists that also, I used to listen to Barbara Streisand a lot, and I would just sit on the floor and just listen to them and sing with them. And I would listen to Denise Williams and Minnie Riperton, and I do a lot of Minnie Riperton's. She's passed on, and I do a lot of her music because I don't want what she did to die. And since I do have the pipes to do it, I do it, because I honored her as an artist. Denise Williams, I love Denise Williams' music. I studied her music too, and was honored to do some of her material as well, and my own material. So I have no trouble honoring other people that came before me that influenced me,
Yes,
So.
yes. Today we look at the music industry, and for an artist like you who has grown tremendously from the 60s and the 70s, and the journey that R&B music have taken has been through a lot of bumps and obstacles, but still remains relevant today. What's your outlook on today's music with these young R&B female and male artists coming up today? What is it that you would want to say about the trend that the music had followed to this time?
Yeah, I still think, artists have a responsibility for the future of future artists and the children that are listening to. So I think, I've written a couple edgy things, kind of, just edgy, sexy kind of things. But mostly what I write are things that will heal people, that will help people to maybe think a different way, or to go in a different direction, or to embrace themselves, or to look deeper into their thoughts, or mostly about love and understanding and trying to guide it that way, because you have to write a variety of things. And I think I love the hip-hop world, and I think they're starting to go back into that direction. I think basically it was about partying and, using different drugs, I guess, and also, being very sexy, and the clubs and the alcohol and all those things. From my experience and the layers of life that I've lived and seen, get people into so much trouble. And they make decisions that they normally wouldn't make, and once that stuff destroys the natural chemistry in your body, and you start venturing off into things you normally wouldn't do, you lower the bar in your lifestyle and how you want to be in this world, because you're not going to be here forever. And I see a lot of people dying young, in their 40s, 30s. They haven't even lived, and they get involved in all this stuff. So music has a big influence on people's minds, because it's like a little snake. It just keeps winding into you, and before you know it, you've embraced all those words and lyrics. So you do have to be careful about what you talk about, and hopefully lift the bar and allow people to be more productive and more creative in how they want to live their lives.
Yeah, it's interesting that you said that, because we have seen many artists, rappers as well as singers, who have lost their voice. We were talking about artists that lost their spin, their voice. Great artists, and there was something that happened in their lives. Either they went to prison or they got strung out on drugs, and when they tried to make a comeback, they didn't have it anymore.
Yeah.
Artists like you may have never made it to the pinnacle that a lot of these artists have made it to, but you have kept your consistency. Your voice is still there. You still have that spin in your sound, and the older you grow, it just stays with you. Why do you think that many of these artists, and you touched on it a little bit before that, but why do you think that a lot of these artists, it was amazing how Natalie Cole was able to come back But why do you think a lot of these young artists today, they can't, a lot of them have lost it. They can't make a surge back into popularity again.
Because I don't think they really understand the gift that they have. This form that shelters our spirit is we don't plug it in like we do these phones. I mean, it just keeps going, you know. And the younger you are, you can try a lot of different things, and a lot of times you'll be okay. But then if you continue, you know, in your 30s and 40s, doing that same old, making those crazy choices and destroying your body through really bad food and using alcohol and you know, smoking a lot of weed and messing up your throat, and then you don't practice, you don't sleep, you don't get enough food, you know what I mean, good food, vegetables and stuff like that, and you're eating fast foods, you're gonna go spiral right down. You have to practice your vocals, and you have to eat well and rest well. I don't care how old you are. You could be 13. You still have to get rest and respect this temple that we have. And that's where, you know, people, they get stuck on their ego. You know, they edge God out, and they just think, oh, I'm all this, and I'm going to do this, and I can eat this and go do that and do whatever I want to. But they don't honor this gift, and that's where a lot of people make their mistakes, I think.
Yeah. A question that comes to mind is, and it's sort of a very basic and simple question, but when did you first hear music? When did you first hear great songs and great music that inspired you?
Probably, as a little kid, you know, my grandmother probably hummed and stuff, but my mother loved calypso, so I know she was playing calypso when I was a baby. I was probably bumping up and down in the crib, you know, but they were playing Sparrow and Kitchener and all those great calypsonians. And so my mother liked parties, and she would invite her friends to come in the basement in New York, and they would have their little drinks, and they would be dancing Caribbean calypso. You know, they'd be doing the calypso dancing and stuff. And there were all different kinds of people that would come and visit, you know. So I think that's where I heard most.
Very much. That's a great Caribbean experience right there. You come from that whole Caribbean foundation.
Yeah.
I saw some time back a magazine, I think it was an Ebony magazine, where you and your daughter Nia had visited, I think, one of the Caribbean islands.
Yeah.
Was it Trinidad or
Barbados?
Barbados? I think.
And Barbados.
And so you went back home. Tell us about that.
Okay. Yeah. Nia went there to speak to some young girls that had that lived in this Christian Catholic facility, and a lot of them were pregnant, or some of them even had their babies, and she went there to kind of mentor with them, and she brought a refrigerator, and she brought clothes, and they did they took the girls out, they got their hair done, their nails, you know, and it was a whole event. And then Nia was pregnant at the time, so it was kind of interesting how they related to her and how she related to them, you know, because their parents, they sent them to this place. They probably wanted them to deliver, and a lot of them didn't have the family support that you would think that they would have had. You know,
how did it affect you?
Well, I was proud of my daughter for extending herself, because she knew as a single mother how difficult it was for me, you know, trying to do everything, and I, even though I had the support of my mother and father, but they weren't in California, they were back east, and I had my sister who was in Detroit, so I would always be in touch with them, and sometimes, you know, they would take Nia for a while if I had to work or something, but having that support really helped. My sister, my mother, and my dad.
Yes. So your whole, it has enhanced your whole outlook in terms of visiting that island and coming back. It has really enhanced your whole outlook in how you look at things today, how you look at your music, your art. How has it affected you in your art, in your artistic life?
Okay, back, let's say, 96, 95, 96, I was around a lot of Caribbean people. And so one friend of mine in particular, he introduced me to my own culture. And so I went back to Trinidad and I did the carnival. And that just opened my eyes to my own culture. Because even though my mother and father were, the food and the music and everything, it was still not like being in Trinidad. I used to go to Trinidad with during the summer when I was a little kid and spend summers with my aunt. But going back for the carnival was the bomb. I mean, I had so much fun, the most fun I've ever had in my life, and I have cousins there. So that opened up. So I did a series of monoprints on the carnival. And I still have them. I won't let them go. A lot of people have not seen this work, and I wish I could expose it even more. But, I'm just holding on to them until I get a chance to do that.
Talita, you are a woman with a great sense of consciousness. In meeting you, I immediately saw that. How do you incorporate that sense of consciousness into your art in terms of working in a sort of a commercially driven industry? Mm-hmm. Artists like yourself, how do you really merge the sense of consciousness in your music? Listening to your songs, you can hear that. Mm-hmm. How do you really do that?
I think that comes from growing up in New York during the 60s with Malcolm X, Martin Luther King, and seeing, different politicians, that have been very helpful and community-minded. Also, I think the Panthers had a lot to do with my consciousness of service to people, because the Panthers, the women were always helping, to feed the children and to go into the communities, and I would be involved. I went to Howard University, so I would be involved in some of the after the breakfast programs and stuff like that. I would volunteer and stuff like that. When I was like 17, 18, when I was in college. And so I don't think that leaves you. It never leaves you. And at Howard, the first black African American queen with the afro, that was the first one. I was there when they crowned her. Wow. And I'm trying to remember her name. Yeah, actually I have a picture of her. But, all those things, and then the Qs and the Kappers and, just being at Howard for 2 years really solidified that consciousness of blackness and wanting to be the best that I could be to influence and to help other people, give service. And I think even till today, it's always about giving service and helping someone else.
Very much so. And you can see that as a part of your life, like it's a way of life for you. That's the beauty of you as a story, in that it's a way of life. You have been consistently doing these things, all in one, all these things that you do. Stokely Carmichael, he's from Trinidad.
Yes.
Do you know him?
I didn't know him, and Miriam Makeba. Those were like my heroes, Stokely Carmichael. Of course, I was proud of him. In the politics during the time, they, and even what's her name? I can't think of it. Huh?
Cicely Tyson?
No, Cicely Tyson. When I was in New York, I used to see her walking up and down 57th Street coming from wherever shows she was doing. But seeing these people, it's amazing, because you see how successful and how difficult it was back then. Nina Simone, what she went through, she didn't care. She just did her thing regardless. So these were heroes for me.
Yeah. Paul Robeson?
Yeah, I know about him. Yeah,
influenced you in any way?
No,
great
but his
artist,
voice,
phenomenal singer.
amazing voice.
Actor.
His presence was just capital. Just amazing.
Yes. Talita, where are you at this present time of your life? Where are you at this present time in your music and in your artwork? Give our viewers an understanding of that journey. But where are you at this moment?
At this moment, what I'm working on is to integrate the music and the art. Like I have this project. Actually, it's a story. It's a Caribbean story that my mother wrote, and my sister rewrote it, and I illustrated the story about this little boy. And this is doing either an animation and or a book on this children's story is something that I'm pretty passionate about. And so that's what I'm working on. So that can include music, Caribbean music in the background, voiceovers, and doing an animation of the actual artwork. Everything is done. It's just now putting it together. I got the voiceover done in Trinidad when I was there recently. And so what I'm trying to do is either do both if I can. That's my goal right now. Musically, it's somewhere deep inside me, I still want to get a deal singing. Even though I'm at this stage in my life, I still can deliver, and also I would love for other artists to sing my music. And I would like to write for younger artists if I can. That would be one of my artist wishes. And to perform more in festivals and things like that. I don't get a chance to perform in festivals as much as I would like to. It's either sometimes the industry, they're kind of hard on older artists, and it doesn't mean that the artist has nothing to give. The artist always has stuff to give. And I think they miss out on a lot of opportunities when they ignore me.
But you're also doing a lot of great things right now. You're performing on the local scene a lot. Tell us about that. Some of your local
I've done
performances.
some performances in Long Beach, and I'm working with a friend who's. It's better for me not to walk into these clubs and try to book anything. It just doesn't work as a female artist. Maybe I just don't have the confidence. I don't know, but I have someone who's working at booking me in some other local clubs. So I'm looking forward to doing that. I did the Catalina, the bakery in Culver City. I've done a few things, a few festivals in Detroit, but not enough. I practice every week religiously. I'm working on a lot of songs, things that I've written, and also cover tunes, variety of things, just so that it's Earth, Wind, and Fire, Bruno Mars, that song by him, and things that I like to sing, just songs that I like.
Is there a new album in the mix right now for you?
Well, I would like to think that there's a lot of singles that could be pulled together to make a CD, but the way it is now, you don't almost need to do like a whole CD like you used to, but it's nice to have it on one CD if you can.
Yes. Are you looking out also at the international market, the world beat? Because we know that a lot of the artists from the 70s now, they're very big in Europe, big in Japan, big in other places except the United States.
Yeah.
So are you looking at that area too? Because your music is very relevant to those audiences also.
Yes, and there's a song that I wrote with another producer like you, and it's called Congo Girl. So this is how I do it. I write the song, and then I get I put the sheet music right behind it. So I'm pretty anal about this. So there's a song written in 2008 during the recession. Yay!
Yeah. One of the greatest world beat songs that will ever be written. Words by Talita Long, music by Bilal Morris. Yours truly. It was great working with this song.
Right. It happened so fast, didn't it?
Look at how it happened. Met her at Jordan High School as an art teacher and says, hey, you know, I got this song. And just gave her this track and she just wrote these beautiful words.
It all came out
automatically. I was like, oh, this lady has consciousness.
Yeah, and it worked perfect.
Yeah.
And I have not been able to get it out as much as I want to, and I do sing it and I do practice my song. And the Congo Girl I saw this, it was like a documentary on one of the cable stations, and this European woman was talking to these African women that were raped and mistreated by the UN soldiers that were assigned to protect the villages, and they abused their privileges with these women, and the women caught all kind of diseases, and they were, rejected by their husbands and things like that because they had gotten raped. And so I couldn't believe it. So I wrote this song called Congo Girl, which talks exactly about it. And you actually gave me the track. So that was one of my first songs that I've written, world music that I was passionate about. I was trying to give the song away so that people would listen to it. But, I guess I'm going to put it on my Facebook page, my fan page. And so if you really want to listen to it, you can listen to it there.
And finally, what was your work like with the Belizean producer Michael Hyde, who is the keyboard player for Ziggy Marley? I know that you're working with him.
Yeah.
What is that experience like?
Oh, that's been great. He was a producer on a Congo Girl. You did the music, and he put it all together. And working with Mike has been amazing because I do background vocals for a lot of the Jamaican and Belizean artists that he does music for, and I've enjoyed that because it's gotten me closer to doing more world music. And when I bring my original tunes to him, he's always kind of coming up with great music to support what I'm writing about. And we're still working together, and I hope we still have a long future together. Yeah, it's great.
Talita Long, singer, musician, painter, artist, and mother. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.